children. This mother and her twins, they did not survive. A boy hiding other children by the trees and then running for help. President Trump urged Mexico to allow U.S. troops to help. Tonight, Mexico's response. This evening, a surprise change to testimony in the impeachment inquiry. President Trump's handpicked ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, now admitting a quid pro quo with Ukraine, saying he told a top Ukrainian official hundreds of millions in U.S. aid would be withheld unless the president's political rivals were investigated. The ambassador now saying his memory has been refreshed. The frigid air about to move in, an Arctic blast sweeping across the country. What it will feel like from Chicago to New York City, and several states now bracing for snow up to 6 inches in some places. Ginger is here to time it out. The sheriff's deputy charged tonight after this takedown with a student at this school. The restaurant outraged tonight, the family speaking out. African-American customers who say they were told to move to different tables because another customer did not want to sit near them. The restaurant firing employees, and the news conference today, the children wiping away tears. The horrific scene tonight, it is difficult to watch. The hit-and-run victim struck and left for dead while crossing a busy street. Dozens of vehicles driving by, and tonight the hunt for the driver. A mother's warning this evening after her 10-year-old boy falls from an indoor zip line 20 feet onto a concrete floor. And tonight the claim about the harness. And the home on the edge tonight teetering, and the long-awaited operation.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Tuesday night, and we begin tonight with that horrific story. Several Americans, mothers and their children, ambushed and killed in Mexico. 9 people killed in all, including 6 children, attacked while traveling in 3 separate cars. One car riddled with bullets and incinerated by fire, trapping this mother, her infant twins, and 2 other children inside. None of them survived. Several other children were wounded, at least 5 flown by helicopter to a hospital in Arizona tonight. Some of those children survived because of a 13-year-old boy who helped them hide behind trees. Tonight, who was behind this attack? ABC's chief national affairs correspondent Tom Llamas leads us off from Mexico.
Nita and 4 of my grandchildren are burnt and shot up.
Tonight, this charred, bullet-ridden SUV marks the massacre that a Mexican drug cartel unleashed on an American family. 3 women and at least 6 children, including twin infants, ambushed and shot in a remote mountainous area south of the U.S. border. These images show some of the survivors, including at least 5 children who were flown by helicopter to be treated for gunshot wounds in Tucson, Arizona. They somehow escaped the slaughter.
The oldest was 13, I believe. He hid them all under a bush on the side of the road, told him to stay, and he ran.
The victims, all part of a fundamentalist Mormon group that lived in the border region for decades. Victims' relatives say the group was traveling by caravan, picking up family members, preparing for an upcoming wedding. They were traveling in 3 separate SUVs, deep in narco territory and amid an ongoing cartel war. Mexican officials think the women's SUVs may have been mistaken by rival drug gangs. Relatives say at one point one of the mothers got out of her vehicle with her hands up to show they were families. The gunman shot her point blank in the chest.
Mexico has always been safe for us growing up. I always felt safe there. And just in the last few months, it's gotten a little scary.
President Trump reacting to the horrific news, tweeting, "If Mexico needs or requests help in cleaning out these monsters, the United States stands ready, willing, and able to get involved and do the job quickly and effectively."
Es un asunto que nos corresponde.
But Mexico's president saying their country will handle this alone, vowing justice. But it's unclear what that will look like. Just last month, Mexican security forces were outgunned by a drug cartel, all caught on camera. This body cam showing Mexican commandos pleading with the son of drug kingpin El Chapo after they had taken him into custody to call off his narco militia. The government releasing this graphic video to show they had to let El Chapo's son eventually go and retreat to save lives. The drug violence getting worse in Mexico, and tonight, an American family that was ready to celebrate a wedding, now preparing for several funerals.
This is such an awful story. Tom Llamas reporting live from Mexico City tonight. And Tom, we're learning more about that brave boy who hid those other young survivors before then getting help himself.
That's right, David. He was just 13 years old and so brave. He took his siblings, who were all bleeding from gunshot wounds. He stuck them in some bushes. He covered them with branches. And then, David, he walked 14 miles to get help back home. And because of his work, 8 children are alive tonight. I had a chance to speak with a former Mexican intelligence officer. I asked him, how could these vicious criminals shoot innocent women and children? His chilling response, David, because they can. They're the law in that part of Mexico, and no one will stop them.
The
David?
chilling reality, Tom. And as you point out, that boy went 14 miles for help. Tom, thank you. We turn back to news here at home and to the other major headline tonight involving the impeachment showdown. A surprise change today in testimony. President Trump's handpicked ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, now admitting a quid pro quo with Ukraine, saying he actually told a top Ukrainian official hundreds of millions in U.S. aid would be withheld unless the president's political rivals were investigated. That's not what he said in his original testimony. So why the change? He said his memory was refreshed. Here's Mary Bruce on the Hill.
In an astounding reversal, the president's hand-picked point man in Ukraine is now admitting he presented the Ukrainian government with a quid pro quo. Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the EU, says he told a top Ukrainian official they would likely not receive nearly $400 million in military aid unless they publicly committed to investigate President Trump's political rivals. Sondland adding the public statement would need to come directly from Ukrainian President Zelensky himself. Sondland did not acknowledge any of this when he testified last month, but now he's revised his account after his memory was, quote, refreshed by the explosive testimony of Bill Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, and Tim Morrison, the president's top Russia advisor.
It's never too late to do the right thing. I don't want to be critical of anyone who comes forward.
Unlike others who have testified, Sondland is not a career public servant. He's a Trump mega donor whose loyalty was rewarded with an ambassadorship, and he has been quick to defend the president. Shortly after Sondland laid out that quid pro quo to Ukraine, he received a text message from that American diplomat Bill Taylor, who said it was crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. Sondland responded, the president has been crystal clear, no quid pro quos of any kind.
The text message that I saw from Ambassador Sondland, who's highly respected, was there's no quid pro quo. He said that.
But Sondland says he was just repeating what the president told him in a phone call. Sondland told investigators the president delegated Ukraine policy to his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, that the president just kept saying, talk to Rudy, talk to Rudy. He says Giuliani's demands of Ukraine became increasingly, quote, insidious, and that when Sondland discussed the role of the president's lawyer with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Pompeo rolled his eyes and said, yes, it's something we have to deal with.
So let's get right to Mary Bruce. She's live up on the Hill tonight. And Mary, the president's chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, has also now been called to testify. Of course, we know he's not expected to show up. But I want to get back to Ambassador Sondland and this change in testimony, because it was just a week ago his lawyer told the Washington Post that Sondland has nothing to add to his prepared testimony. And then today, these significant changes. What happened?
Well, David, Sondland initially said he could not recall many of these details, but other witnesses did, raising questions here on the Hill about whether Sondland was telling the truth. Sondland was under mounting pressure. He knew this transcript was likely going to be released, and so yesterday he submitted this revised testimony. David?
And Mary, while we have you tonight, no doubt they took note of this as well up on the Hill today. This joint statement from the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, NSA, among others, all warning, quote, that our adversaries want to undermine our democratic institutions and influence public sentiment, and not just Russia.
David, in this statement, they say Russia, China, and Iran will seek to interfere in the voting process or influence voter perception. David.
All in the lead up to 2020. Mary Bruce live on the Hill tonight. Our thanks to you again. In the meantime, to other news, and the Arctic blast about to move in, what it will feel like from Chicago all the way east to New York City, and several states now bracing for snow up to 6 inches in some places. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Zee timing it out live for us tonight. And Ginger, you told us it was coming.
Oh, David, I wish I wouldn't have to. And wait till you see the cold that's coming early next week. It's even more severe. But let's focus on tonight. And that's why Mankato, Minnesota, over to Muskegon, Michigan in a winter weather advisory. Quick hit of 2 to 4 inches of snow in there. So driving tonight into early tomorrow, that commute could be a mess. But look, another low adjoins to this cold front. It's going to bring flood threat through the Ozarks. Then it meets up with that super cold air. That means interior New England could pick up to 6 inches of snow and heavy rains right at the coast. So that could impact travel Thursday night into Friday. And then it's Saturday. That's when that first big hit of cold air comes in. It'll feel like the teens from Detroit to Pittsburgh, right to Boston, where the feels like Saturday morning is 12, David.
All right, Ginger Z tonight. Thank you, I think. 2 other news now, and a Florida deputy under arrest for a troubling incident caught on camera inside a school for children with emotional and behavioral issues. The deputy seen grabbing a 15-year-old girl by the neck and throwing her to the ground. Tonight, the head of the force outraged by what he saw, and here's ABC's Steve Osunsami now.
On the left is Broward County Deputy Willard Miller, the school resource officer at Cross Creek School, seen here texting on his phone. He was arrested. And on the right is the 15-year-old girl, the student he's accused tonight of physically abusing.
The byproduct of his actions were deplorable. They were uncalled for, and they violated multiple policies just on the optics.
This is a school for children with emotional and behavioral issues, and you see the student touch him with her foot, pushing the back of his leg. A minute later, it appears that they exchange words, and then he walks across the room, grabs the girl by the neck, throws her to the ground, and puts his knee in her back. He then pulls her off the ground, throws her into a room, causing the victim's body to hit the wall, according to the police report. The charge tonight, felony child abuse without great bodily harm. The sheriff is furious.
I would hope that every cop in America would disagree with that type of response.
The officer has been suspended and has not yet entered a plea. Authorities tell us that school officials found this incident by accident while they were investigating something unrelated. David?
Steve Osunsami tonight. Thank you, Steve. We are learning more tonight after a New Hampshire couple was found dead, buried on a Texas beach. Police looking for persons of interest. Another couple seen in their truck at a border crossing with Mexico. They have now identified the driver seen in that truck. He's a wanted man tonight, and ABC's Marcus Moore now with late reporting here.
Tonight, Texas authorities naming Adam Curtis Williams as the man seen in this surveillance image. Police say crossing the border in a truck belonging to a retired couple found murdered in Padre Island, Texas. Authorities highlighting Williams' distinct tattoos and gauges. The woman pictured with him, now identified as Amanda Novaire. Police still calling her a person of interest.
You now have a name for the people you're looking for. How significant is that?
Well, that's a big break in the case.
And investigators believe the pair crossed into Mexico near Eagle Pass and may still be south of the border. James and Michelle Butler's bodies were found in a shallow grave days after family reported them missing. The retired couple was on a cross-country road trip when they vanished, last seen alive on October 15th. Authorities won't say how they were killed, but that the murder was brutal.
Every homicide is brutal, and this one is particularly nasty.
Tonight, a shocked community waits for word of an arrest as police search for whoever was responsible for these murders.
And police here in Texas have issued an arrest warrant for Williams for the alleged theft of the Butler family's car, and he is considered armed and dangerous. David?
All right, Marcus, thank you. And next, a group of parents and children who are multiracial are speaking out tonight after they were asked to move their seats at a restaurant after they were allegedly told a regular customer did not want to sit near them. Employees have been fired, and today the emotional news conference, children wiping away tears. Here's ABC's Alex Perez.
Emotional and at times in tears, these Illinois families say they were targeted at this Buffalo Wild Wings because they're black.
I was appalled. I was astonished.
Justin Vale and his family had just asked for a table for 18 to spend some time with friends after a birthday party.
The host asked what race we were. I asked him why that mattered. And he said because we have a regular customer who is a racist and that he does not want to be seated around black people.
The group says they were then told their seats were reserved and they'd have to move. They ended up leaving the restaurant. That incident last week sparking outrage after Justin's wife shared the story on Facebook along with this photo of the man they say wanted them to move.
You look at these boys, and they're all different. And they need to know that's okay.
Buffalo Wild Wings yesterday apologizing to the families after firing the employees involved, adding, "We have banned the customer who exhibited the inappropriate behavior from all Buffalo Wild Wings for life." David, the restaurant chain says they will be conducting sensitivity training. The families are demanding the company do more to prevent something like this from happening again. David?
Alex Perez tonight. Thank you, Alex. Authorities are asking for the public's help tonight after a disturbing, deadly hit-and-run accident in Los Angeles. A man crossing a busy street hit by a fast-moving car, the driver speeding away, leaving the man behind. Other cars driving right by him. We warn you, this is difficult, and tonight there is an urgent hunt now for the driver. ABC's Chief